Hello everyone and welcome to Looking at the Quiz. So what I see first off, this quiz has about 16 questions and then ends with an SAQ. As I look at this SAQ, honestly it feels extremely easy and I don't think you're going to need a whole lot of studying for it. As long as you've been paying attention, as long as you watch the review video, I think you'll be fine. But looking at the multiple choice questions, I would make sure I knew about American isolationism prior to World War II, America's desires to mostly stay out of the war prior to World War II. Remember a guy that we talked about a lot with that was Charles Lindbergh in the America First Committee. Dr. Seuss kind of skewered him in those political cartoons that we looked at, but basically people who were bound and determined to keep America out of the Second World War whenever it became clear that it was brewing, and even when it broke out. So here now I look, there's even more questions about American isolationism. I see some questions here. I see one here about Japanese internment. I see a few here about Japanese issues here. And then I see a question here about the spread of Hitler and the Nazis and a little bit about appeasement there. That seems like it would be pretty important. Remember, appeasement being the policy of European countries specifically, and Neville Chamberlain individually, he kind of bears the brunt of the appeasement policies that let Hitler have little bits of Europe at a time without stopping him, because they were trying to avoid World War II until eventually he invades Poland with Russia and it becomes too much. Next up, I definitely see some questions here about Lend-Lease. If nothing else, make sure you understand what Lend-Lease is, American aid to Great Britain specifically, and then later on the Soviet Union. But really the purpose of the Lend-Lease Act was to try the best to keep America out of the war. Remember, there had been some neutrality acts, 3 different neutrality acts get passed in the 1930s, kind of tying FDR's hand, but Lend-Lease is basically just going to give the weapons, supplies, munitions, food, things like that to these European countries. And they're specifically to Great Britain and the Soviet Union, and basically say, hey, you can give them back when the war is over, but really not expecting them back very much more than likely. Ooh, and now I see a random question here from period 3. This is from the Revolutionary era. You're going to want to make sure that you study the Revolutionary era. Be sure you take a look at that. Here I'm looking at some questions about the atomic bomb. I'm looking at some questions about things like island hopping and American strategy in the Pacific. I see a question here about the Battle of Midway and it sort of being the thing that happens after Pearl Harbor that turns the tide of the war. So to sum up, I tried to get a lot of different stuff in here. I don't really see much about the New Deal in here, just to give you a little bit of a hint. Because of that, I would focus mostly on World War II. Be sure to focus on America's policy with Japan overseas, also America's policy with Japan at home. I definitely would know, if I were you, I would know what the Manhattan Project is. I would know a little bit about those atomic bombs, and then specifically be sure you look at the Bataan Death March in the Philippines. That is on some of the Google slides. So more than anything, make sure you just watch these videos, look at the Google slides. If you need any help, please let me know.